Hi there, I'm Quentin Pearson and welcome to Elevate. We help small teams and companies automate manual processes with low-code tools. We help you integrate your new and existing tools to work more efficiently, save money, and save time. Visit us at elevateam.net. Today I have a real quick one I wanted to share. I've realized that every time I try to use this feature, I kind of go back, and I thought that maybe this would help someone else out. The idea would be that you have a Zapier or Make scenario, or maybe you use the Airtable API to get some records based on some dates or search criteria and so on, but you're not really sure how to do that. If we have a look at Zapier, we can see that they do have the ability to look at a specific base and table and then search by a field. Let's say, for example, there's an email address in the field and you'd like to search for a specific email address. So you enter that or map that search value over here and you're good to go. But in some cases, you have some more structured way you need to find things. So you have certain conditions that need to be met and you'd like to have all the records returned based on those permissions. One thing to note is that Zapier allows you to return up to 10 records. This isn't optimal. In some cases this might be fine, but if you want to search and request more, you can definitely use the Airtable API to do that. If you come to the Airtable API reference, you can see that the list records get call is here, and there's the call command that you can copy over here. You can read more about authentication if you're not familiar with these things on how to set up this API call, and then use a tool like Postman to copy this call, import the call, and most of it is already set up. You just need to replace some of these values with the values from your own Airtable account, like your base ID, table ID or name, and then your authorization token. Let's have a look at what we would be doing. The way I like to do this is, let's say for example, we have the proposal deadline. Based on some dates we have or information we have, we'd like to get all the records between a certain date period. Let's say for example, from the first month up until the end of the fourth month. I like to create a formula, and once I create the formula within Airtable and I see that it works, I know that this wouldn't cause any errors within whichever tool you use. Over here we can see 111, and this means that this formula is true for this date. And if we have a look at the formula, we can see, okay, this looks kind of confusing, but we can break this up. So normally this would be a single formula. What are we doing here? We're using the isAfter function, and this looks at the dates. We can see that isAfter, we need to pass in a column. In my case, I use the proposal deadline column, and then the next information we pass in is the date. So adding a normal date, sometimes this is seen as text or it just isn't properly formatted. We use the datetime path function to format this date so that it's formatted correctly to be able to use it. We can see we take this date that we want to use as the starting date and add the format that we need, and that's it. That's the first one. The second one is before. You can think of, we're setting up the period that we want to look at is after this date and is before this date, and then it kind of makes sense. But if you just add it like this, it's not going to work. You need the AND function to kind of say this needs to be true and this also needs to be true. Everything is wrapped in the AND. And the reason I like using Airtable to do this is you can see that they give you this little drop down to kind of see it expand. If you expand this, you can see that, okay, there's the full function, there's the isAfter, and there's the before. A good way I do it myself, and I've seen other developers do it as well, is you can insert a field to the right and say before date, make this a formula. And this is kind of just to give you a better idea of what's going on. You can then say is after, is underscore after, and it would pop up. You can see a little information pop up over here that explains how to use this. So in this case, they said deadline, which would be this column value. Let's say, for example, this is the proposal, and you can see that pop up. Add that over here. We add a comma there to make sure we can add the next information that's required. Then in this case, they use the today item, which just says today, but we'd like to look at a specific thing, let's say, or a specific date. Let's say the 1st of the first month, 2020. This doesn't always work. To make sure that it works a bit better, I'm going to add this and then say date time pause. And then we can see exactly what this looks like. We can then add the date string. That's why it's enclosed in the quotation marks. We add the date string, we add the format, and then we can add locale as well, but that's not really something that I'll do. Let's add, okay, once we've added that and added the final bracket for this date time pause function as well, we can see that this is sorted out. We can say create field. Actually, this should be after date. Oops, here we go. We have this formula for the after, and we can have a look whether this makes sense. We can see that there's no dates over here, and these don't conform to that formula we've set up. What we can do is maybe set another date, and we can see that doesn't match up either. So wherever these ones are, that means it's true. And then we can add the next one. I'll just duplicate this field and we can edit this. We can say that this is the before date. And then instead of is after, we'll say is before. And then we'll still use the same thing, the proposal deadline. Let's just remove this extra bracket. Proposal daytime pause, and then we can say the 1st of the 5th month. Then we'll get everything up until the end of the 4th month. If we save this, we can look at the same thing again, and we can see that, okay, these have no dates, so it doesn't conform. These are past the date we're looking at. It's the 1st of the 5th month, and we said we want everything before the 1st of the 5th month. And where these come together, these are the ones that will be returned, where both are ones. That's where the AND function comes in to make sure that both conform to this formula. What you can then do is just copy both of these formulas and then add it into that main formula you wanted to use earlier on. It might be a bit confusing, but it's easier to break it up in those smaller sections. That way you know that there's no error in writing out everything, and you know the smaller components within that actually work. There we go. And if we go to copy this and go to Zapier, we can just paste that information into the search formula, knowing that the formula already works. We don't need to test this hundreds of times and change it within Zapier itself. We know that it already works. We can just paste it in and use it. Over here, what you'll do then is change your mappings wherever it's needed, and then you can continue and you can test. If we go to Airtable and look at the records that match, in this case there are 3 records, JJ Second Team, Our Limited, and Robin Networks. We can go look at the results. We can see we have 1, 2, 3, and it looks like it's all the same records we were looking for. There we go. It is that simple. You can really use these formulas to get so much information in a more structured way, rather than making multiple search calls and trying to find the correct data you're looking for. Like I mentioned before as well, look into using the Airtable API to prevent limits like the 10 record limit that's enforced by Zapier. Rather use the API then. I really hope this helped you guys out. Like I said, I searched for this so many times. Having a small video that might help anyone out, I think would really mean much to people. Let me know if I need to go deeper into this, and I'd really try my best to explain it better. If there's any questions, feel free to ask it, and I'll do my best to answer them as best as possible. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for watching the video. If it helped you out at all, please consider subscribing or contacting us on elevateteam.net so that we can look into your own use case and possibly create custom solutions to make your life just a little easier.